Right, the big telecom disconnect and what really is the impact on banks, mutual funds and the impact on India's economy. Joining me for more on this are Vishnu, Shom and Sakshi. Let's go across to you first, Vishnu, just actually explaining why this whole issue over AGR, adjusted gross revenue, is so big, not just for two or three companies.
Well, Sonia, first let's run you through the developments of the day and then let's go through what adjusted AGR actually means, what it's all about. Now, today's been an important day because a couple of indicators of where this is all going. The Vodafone Idea chairman, K.M. Birla, and the CEO of the company have met the Telecom secretary, Anshu Prakash. Now, sources indicate that the government might be ready to invoke the Telecom bank's guarantees. Now, this is an absolutely critical point because if those guarantees are in fact invoked, then it means that Vodafone could in fact shut down. That's what their senior counsel told us yesterday. So a final decision on this effect is to be taken by the government. If it's taken, it will be a political call. Vodafone Idea has warned of a collapse if the government invokes bank guarantees. Now, what is the result of all of this? Bank stocks are down in the Nifty for private banks, down 0.7%. In the Nifty for public sector banks, down 0.8% in the telecom space. Now, Airtel is to pay 35,586 crores. Those are their dues. Vodafone, a whopping 53,000 crores. Now, what are the risks in all of this for the government? The Vodafone collapse jeopardizes the 5G auction revenue. It is a poor signal to foreign investors in the country who want to come in. And the telecom crisis will ultimately impact consumers. Why? Because data costs are likely to shoot up. Now, there's a strange irony as far as data costs are concerned. That is because the prices of data have been so low as a result of a price war from 2016 when Jio came into the market, that the entire telecom sector is essentially untenable, right? And now finally the government, at a time when these companies are in a lot of trouble, they are likely to bring up those costs. Why wasn't this floor established earlier on in terms of costs? But let's also bring you a few details on what AGR is supposed to mean. Let's just give you an idea of what this is, what AGR is supposed to mean. If we can just move up a little bit, then I can just bring you details of what this is. Now, in 1999, the government allowed operators to pay a share of their revenue towards spectrum charges instead of an upfront fee. This was referred to as adjusted gross revenue, or AGR. But the Department of Telecommunications and the telecom operators differed on what constituted AGR. Operators said that AGR should only include income from telecom services, while the government in 2002 said forex gains, bank deposits, interests, the sale of mobiles themselves, of instruments, should be calculated as well. In 2003, operators went to court and then stopped paying the revenue share on the disputed part of AGR. Their plea was successful initially. It's important to remember that when the Telecom Tribunal ruled in their favor. But the matter was challenged in the Supreme Court, which ruled that the Department of Telecom's definition of AGR was correct from day one, which is why we are now in this crisis. What is the overall crisis? Of the 16 operators against whom the Department of Telecom had raised a demand, 11 have shut shop. 2 are struggling PSUs, MTNL and BSNL, and 2 are debt-laden private operators, Vodafone being the worst affected by the AGR demand. So a couple of points there on how this is a fairly nightmarish scenario, a scenario where in fact a company like Vodafone teetering right on the edge.
So Vishnu, that explains the whole crisis, puts it in context. So we're talking about the telecom and the economy, but that bit you mentioned, and Sakshi will bring you in on that, is also the exposure. And this is more bad news for banks and mutual funds coming after the IL&FS crisis, because of course banks are heavily exposed to telecom companies as well, especially Vodafone.
Absolutely. So it's the financials and the banking stocks that were dragging the market down today. Remember, Vodafone tumbled over 10% at close. Bharti Airtel closed lower by nearly 3%. But it was financials dragging through the trading day as well, because they have a huge exposure to our telecom majors. So remember, as far as SBI is concerned, SBI has an exposure of 15,000 crores towards Vodafone Idea alone. And ICICI Bank has an exposure of 1,200 crores towards Vodafone Idea alone. ICICI Bank and IndusInd Bank stocks also tumbled in trade, and clearly investors are watching out for the impact that this will have on the overall market mood.
Right. Thanks very much for that, Sakshi. And of course, mutual funds also impacted by that. So it affects the ordinary investor and, of course, call prices as well. So let's just see how this unfolds, what the government's going to do. As Vishnu pointed out, the Vodafone Idea chairman met the Telecom secretary. The minister is also meant to be meeting officials tonight.